Hey, what's good, everybody? It's your boy, Jolly by Nature, and we are back bringing you our Chapter 7 PvP Team Builder, part of the Blastburn Radio Nuzlocke World Tour. We are getting ready to engage in vicious PvP combat against our co-hosts and opponents, Celes and Mes for episode 82 of the Blastburn Radio Nuzlocke World Tour. This is an interesting week, you guys, for a lot of reasons. We all got a ton of new encounters, and this is really our only chance to play with those new encounters in a normal 6v6 singles PvP environment. Next week is doubles. It's the last double battle, the last traditional PvP showdown of the entire series, and then of course the week after is singles, but it's finale PvP, which is its own beast. So yeah, like, this is really it. And we have a lot of new faces. Mes and Celes have new faces, and it's definitely going to shake things up. So let's talk a little bit about what we're bringing to PvP, what we hope to accomplish, what our opponents are bringing, what, you know, all the stuff. Let's do the team builder. Let's do the team builder, you guys. So last week in PvP, we went 1-1. We dominated Mes. We utterly decimated him. It was not even close. I feel bad about the degree of spanking that we gave to our buddy Mes last week. On the flip side of that coin, we lost to Celes, and it was probably our worst loss to Celes in this string of losses. There was still some RNG involved, but it wasn't flagrant like it had been. So at least that was gratifying. If I'm gonna lose, at least it wasn't to bullshit, at least entirely. In general, we've had a really difficult time when it comes to Celes with dealing with Petra, her Crobat. Petra has just been consistently the biggest problem, in that nothing can really switch into acrobatics, and it's faster than my whole team. The bad news is that Mes got his own Crobat, which is probably the fastest thing anyone is going to have on this series. He got a speed increasing nature Crobat. Stupid fast. And so we're gonna have the same problem out of Mes. The good news is that helps to mitigate that factor. However, we got one particular new encounter this week that's going to be really impactful in that way. We got a Skarmory. We got Kimberly, a defense boosting nature Skarmory, which is really important, you guys, because now finally we have something that can switch into acrobatics pretty freely. That's not to say that we can do so easily. Those are two different things, but we have a switch in that should be able to take even a flying gym boosted acrobatics and do something in return, which is incredibly good and useful and valid. So I think that Kimberly is without hesitation, easily our most impactful new encounter this week. Actually, it's the only new encounter this week that made the team. The other new face that you'll see on our team this week is Zeneku, our Zoroark. And Zeneku's on the team for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's the fastest thing I have, period. It's faster than my Crobat. It's faster than Swoop. It's still going to be slower than Petra, and it's going to be slower than Fidget, Mes's Crobat. That's just a thing. Everything I have or have access to is going to be slower than those bats. But it should be the third fastest thing in the series. Nothing else either of them have to field should hold a candle to Zeneku's speed. Zeneku also has the benefit of being able to set up on the special side. It's a special-based setup sweeper, which is great. A lot of the Pokedex in Unova is physically based, and thus a lot of our defensive walls have been trained to be defensive physically, and so having a nasty plot sweeper is really potentially impactful. It has foul play to punish powerful physical attackers, especially anything that can set up physically. We can come in and punish, which is beautiful. And next week we'll have Flamethrower, not this week, which is unfortunate. In that 4th slot, we currently have Taunt on Zeneku. We're going to actually change that before the day's over. But yeah, really great tool. As a result, obviously not everything that was on our PvP roster last week is coming this week. We went ahead and sat Moltor. We're back in that weird place with our fire types where Moltor really needs to evolve to really stand on his own two legs, and that's not going to happen until next week at the soonest. So for this week, Moltor is just an inferior option, and Imbor, Pudgy is finally in a position to actually be good. Let's start there. We have Superpower now, which is great. We have Flamethrower, and we have the TM for Fire Blast, which is fantastic. But I'm losing to flying types, you guys, and so another flying weakness in the team is just not the answer to that particular problem. I have difficulty seeing where Pudgy thrives in the current meta, and so for that reason, Pudgy's going to sit the bank for PvP this week. Pudgy could come back next week. That is entirely possible. I'm not sure how that particular dynamic is going to play out for the rest of the series, but for this week, Pudgy's out. Of course, returning to the PvP rosters this week, we have Chip, our Brave Galvantula, Xander, our Calm Amoongus, we have Jason, our Hasty Excadrill, we have Madison, our Jellicent, Billy, our Cincino, and Trakina, our Heracross, all of whom, there's going to be some slight moveset changes, but they all fill pretty much the same roles. Really important to note, we got Sandstorm on Jason this week, so we have a Sandstorm, Sand Rush, Excadrill, which makes us essentially a double dance sweeper. We dropped Rock Slide for Sandstorm, and we're going to keep things that way because that means that if we come out on Excadrill on Jason on something that we threaten out, we can take the turn to click Sandstorm, and suddenly we outspeed everything. Fuck those Crobats. You know, Mes can swap out of his Galvantula into his Crobat as we set Sand, and then we're iron heading and getting the chance to flinch before it can go. And that is really, really good, you guys. Like, I can't really overstate how good that is. Really pleased to have that option. Now, again, it's worth noting that Sandrush is banned in standard Gen 5 competitive play. That has a lot to do with the ability, the Sandstream ability, which is not in our series, so it's not a factor, so we've allowed it. And that's a thing that we discussed way back on the rules episodes. I'm hoping that my opponents remember that too, and that I don't have to like stop and explain to them why I'm doing what I'm doing, but it's very legal. I don't want to talk to them about before the episode because obviously I don't want to give up my strategies beforehand. But yeah, it is legal in our series. We specifically made an allowance for it, so it's going to be really hype. Now, Mes has made only a single change to his roster from last. Well, two changes, but one of them's not. So yeah, we'll get there. Mes is bringing back Absalom, his Amoongus. He has to. It's his Fateful Encounter, Hidden Ability Mon. He's bringing back Ariel the Vaporeon, Brutus the Crocodile, Anasi the Galvantula, Lumiere the Chandelure, and Maui the Gigalith, all returning. His two new Mon for PvP this week are Fidget, the Crobat that we talked about previously. Fidget is replacing... God, who is Fidget replacing on his roster? Let me look real quick. Who was Mes's roster last week? Fidget is replacing Xanatos, the Magnezone, which actually is really good for me. One concern that I had about Mes's team was that Magnezone being able to trap my Skarmory. I was actually going to run Shed's Shell Skarmory specifically to accommodate for that, and Mes decided to accommodate me and not bring the Magnezone, which is fantastic. It means I don't have to do that. And then the other change that Mes was actually forced to make was he accidentally outleveled Gaston in gameplay, so Gaston cannot come to PvP this week, which sucks because Gaston is great. But Mes caught a Heracross named Herbie this week, and Herbie is taking that slot on the team. I hope not forever, because Gaston is iconic of our goddamn series, and I really want him to return, so hopefully that happens. But either way, those are the two new threats we have to deal with, is the Crobat and the Heracross. I feel good about Herbie, Mes's Heracross. Obviously, Heracross is always a problem, and Herbie is Guts, which means that I can't just like click Will-O-Wisp and Thunderwave safely against Mes this week, which is worth remembering. But importantly, Trakina is a very fast Heracross. I would be very surprised if Herbie is faster, and we're gonna go ahead and give Trakina back Aerial Ace, specifically so that if we come up on that mirror match, Trakina should be able to win it. Or maybe won't. Maybe Herbie turns out to genuinely be faster than Trakina, but then we know that, and that's really important going into the last 2 weeks of PvP, to know how those speed tiers play out. And sometimes the only way to get that information is to let them play out. Like, that's the same thing with Brutus, Mes's Crocodile. Like, we knew there was a chance, a good chance, that Jason, our Excadrill, was faster. We stayed in last week, we found out that Jason is not faster, and now we know that. So that's really good. Celeste's team... Celeste's team, you guys. Celeste's team actually only has one change. I guess, wow, I guess this week's encounters weren't as impactful as I thought they were overall when you actually look at it. There were so many of them, though. Celes is bringing back Solon, her Jellicent. She is bringing back Ashe, her Zangoose. She has to, he's faithful. She's bringing back Ignatz, her Reuniclus, Petra, her Crobat, Bernadetta, her Lilligant, and Raphael, the Sandslash. Raphael is still on the squad. That's wild. The changes that Celes is making this week is she is bringing back Caspar, who is now her fully evolved Arcanine. Celes made the decision early in the series to bench her Growlithe and wait until it could learn Flare Blitz. Well, that time is now. It now has Flare Blitz. Celes famously lost her dog. She lost Annette, her Stoutland, this week, and she's replaced it with what is, I think, unequivocally a better dog. She doesn't have Intimidate anymore, but now she has a coverage monster Arcanine that we have to be incredibly aware of. You know, Celes made the decision early in the series to train her Arcanine very, very offensively, which is very much the opposite of what I did with Cosmo last series. And it definitely paid off less in the short term, but in the long term, like here at the end game, it's a threat. It's a big threat, and it's one that we have to figure out how we're going to deal with. The other change to Celeste's roster is the addition of Nemesis, her weak armor Garbodor, who is a shiny encounter this week, which sucks for Celes. That really sucks for Celes. He is replacing Lysithea, her Electros, who is like a coverage monster and just generally really difficult to switch into, and is being replaced by a Garbodor whom I can literally no-brain switch into Skarmory, and it can't touch me. So that sucks for Celes. I can only feel so bad for her with the degree of success that she's had recently, but still not great, and it's still going to be real rough. I feel like we match up really well in both of these matches. Obviously, again, the Crobats are a problem, but we finally have a defensive switch in and answer for those Crobats, so I'm feeling really good about that. We are going to make a couple of moveset changes this week, so let's go ahead and get some boys out of the bank, change their moves. You and you. You're good. You're good. You're good. You're good. You're good forever. You. Okay. So let's go ahead and make some moveset changes. Nothing super major, but there's just a couple of places where I feel like our movesets can match up a little bit better against each of our respective opponents. So we're going to take a moment to do that. First things first, we are going to boot up our Rock Slide TM here. And we're going to give it to Kimberly, our Skarmory, over the Night Slash specifically. And the reason for this is just because Kimberly is our switch into Crobat. And so having, even with her limited offensive stats, like looking at Kimberly, her attack stat it's a negative nature attack stat from a Skarmory. It's 90. It's not the best, but just being able to have like a super effective coverage move that we can click in those circumstances is really, really valuable, and I think is the best use of that move slot overall. We cannot use Roost, which sucks. Roost is from a move tutor we'll gain access to next week, so we'll definitely be getting Roost, but right now we just kind of have to rock out with it as we currently have it. Now, for the rest of our moveset changes, 202 defense, by the way, if you didn't see that. Kimberly's defense stat is fucking ludicrous, which is good. You love to see it. We're going to head back to Drift Veil real quick. Drift Veil, Drifty Valley, Drift Veil. And we're going to go to the move reminder here outside the World Tour. Sorry about all the noise, by the way. It's the daytime, which means all my kids are about and doing kid things. So you know how that goes. Yeah. We're going to remember some moves. We're going to remember one on Zenaku. We're going to relearn U-turn on Zenaku over Taunt, which gives us obviously like a lot of pivot momentum, especially since we can freely click U-turn on anything not named Crobat and know that we are almost guaranteed to be faster than it, which is fantastic. We're also going to use a heart scale on Trakina to relearn. Oh, no, wait. We don't need to. Please don't waste a heart scale like that. Instead, we're going to learn Aerial Ace on Trakina with TM. Save our heart scale. Work smarter, not harder. We're going to learn it over Night Slash. Night Slash obviously is really, really good against Jellicent, but we don't really want to stay in against Jellicent anyway because Will-O-Wisp. So I feel like this is the best use of that slot because it'll potentially allow us to 1v1 Mes's own Heracross, which is real good. So let's talk about what we're bringing to each of our matches this week, and I will go ahead and load up our showdown view here. All right, so I got our teams entered, and against Celes, we are bringing Zenaku, the Zoroark, Jason, the Excadrill, Billy the Cincino, Chip the Galvantula, Kimberly the Skarmory, and Madison the Jellicent. One cool thing about using Zoroark is it's really important who you put in the last spot of your party because that is who Zoroark is going to mimic. So we specifically put Madison the Jellicent in that last spot, and it is specifically to bait certain mon. Let me see if I can remember actually, because I probably should remember like what the logic here was. I mean, obviously it'll probably scare out the Arcanine, but it will. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Oh, it'll bait out her Jellicent. That's right, obviously, because it's water absorb. So like there's a very strong chance that seeing my Jellicent baits out her own Jellicent, which obviously Zenaku's going to deal with handily. It's going to give me setup opportunities for Nasty Plot, which is dope. We're rocking the scope lens on Zenaku. I just don't have an offensive option for an item that is inherently more useful. So having the scope lens to hopefully get some hacksy crits will be real good. We're bringing Jason the Excadrill. We're bringing him with a Citrus Berry because the extra like setup time required of what is essentially a double dance set benefits from having some healing. Because if we can get Jason in and force something out, we can pretty reliably double dance, even if Celes goes into her Crobat, which is probably her best switch in. The only thing we can't really double dance on is her Jellicent for obvious reasons. But I mean, if that's the case, then if she goes into Jellicent, then the Swords Dance is probably enough. We're bringing Billy the Cincino with the wide lens, so we can't miss. We brought Rostberry last week, and that was great because it let us stay in on Jellicent and click Bullet Seed, which was fantastic. It sucked in that we missed twice. So I'm hoping that Celeste's instinct is not going to be to Will-O-Wisp Billy because specifically he was holding that Rostberry last week. But like either way, wide lens will help prevent those mishacks. We're bringing Chip the Galvantula with the Electric Gem to make Thunder hit like a motherfucker. I don't expect Celeste to bring her Sandslash. It's an inferior option on her team. Nothing else wants to eat a Electric Gem Thunder from Chip. Nothing. Literally nothing. Even the things that resist electric, well, the thing that resists electric, even the Lilligant does not want to eat an Electric Gem Thunder. So that's really fucking good. Actually, Chip is almost certainly our lead in this matchup, and we'll probably just click Thunder turn one, and then Volt switch out if we don't like the matchup. So that's going to be real exciting and hopefully real good. We're bringing Kimberly the Skarmory, who matches up really well in this matchup. Obviously, again, Nemesis the Garbodor can do nothing to Kimberly. Literally cannot do more than barely scratch at her. Celeste's Zangoose Ash shouldn't have much by way of coverage for Kimberly. Maybe we'll have Fire Punch or Thunder Punch, but we can work around those options if they're displayed. So here's the thing with Zangoose, right? Looking at Zangoose. Gen 5. At level 52, it can have X Scissor. It can have fucking Crush Claw Return, obviously, Slash. It can have Pursuit. It can have Quick Attack for priority. Obviously, it can have Swords Dance, and I'm sure that it does have Swords Dance. I'd be shocked if Celeste was not running Swords Dance in the thing. It can have Shadow Claw. It can have Aerial Ace. It can have Rock Tomb. It can have Elemental Punches. Specifically Fire Punch and Thunder Punch. And yeah, and Ice Punch. I can have all three of the Elemental Punches. But it can only have 4 of those moves. It can only, like, if it's rocking Return and Thunder Punch, like, then it has to choose between quick attack and other like valuable coverage, or you know, if it's running return and quick attack, then it only gets one coverage type. So like it's really important when it comes to that mon to just figure out what its moveset is. Again, Kimberly's not a perfect switch in for that reason. Like, we really need to know what its moves are. But like, you know, again, if it's rocking like return and Shadow Claw, well, if it's rocking return, Shadow Claw, and Thunder Punch, or return, Shadow Claw, and Fire Punch, then at that point it literally has coverage for my whole team, but I have several things that are faster than it, and I can just whittle it down. It'll be fine. But yeah, the big thing is if that Garbodor comes out ever, Kimberly can just come out and set spikes. There's nothing that thing can do to me, and that's fantastic. We bring in Madison the Jellicent. Madison is really important in this matchup, if only to ideally force that Zangoose into 50-50 situations. Where it has to choose between clicking Shadow Claw, which we know it has, or at least had last week, to hit Jellicent, versus clicking a normal type move to hit other things. So that's really, really helpful. Again, it's possible that Celeste will have thought of that and will be rocking just Thunder Punch this week as a neutral play, but then we also have Jason in the back. So like there's not a lot of safe plays here. I think that the best moveset for Celeste for that mon at this point is probably like return Fire Punch, Thunder Punch, which hits everything. But then again, that also that Forswear's priority, and that priority is potentially real good. So that's just kind of unfortunate. Madison's also a potential lead, depending on if I like what I see there, although I think it's almost definitely going to be Chip. One nice thing about leading with either Madison or Chip is that if Celeste leads with her Zangoose and tries to do big damage early, we can Thunder Wave it on turn 1 and prevent it from getting a Toxic Orb off, since it is a Toxic boost Zangoose. So that's real good. But yeah, I'm feeling pretty confident. I think that we've played Celeste really well for the last couple of weeks, and I think that the addition of a deadweight Garbodor to her squad is going to allow us to make waves, which is good because we need to. Like, if we win both PvP matches for the next 2 weeks and Celeste loses them both, then we can still tie her going into the finale, which is like the goal. That's the dream, right? So that's what we're going to go for. Against Mes, we're bringing a similar team. We are still bringing Kimberly the Skarmory. We're still bringing Zenaku. Same sets, same items. We're still bringing Chip. Same set, same item. Jason and Billy, all the same. The change here is that instead of Madison the Jellicent, we are bringing Trakina the Heracross against Mes. And for obvious reasons. Like, we didn't bring Madison last week because Madison doesn't match up well against Mes's roster. And Trakina really does, especially since, again, like, look, Trakina's speed stat is really, really high for a Heracross that is not speed boosting nature, which means there's a very real chance that Trakina is going to outspeed and murder Mes's Heracross, which is very fucking good. But Kimberly is still real good in this matchup. Again, there's a lot of things that Mes has that can't really do a ton. Obviously, like, we can switch in well to Amoonguss. We can switch in well to Crocodile. We can switch in reasonably well to Heracross. Now, obviously, Mes has a Galvantula and a Chandelure that Kimberly wants none of. But yeah, like at the very least, forcing those switches gives us opportunities to spike, which is real good. We're putting Billy in the back of this time around to make Zenaku look like Billy, which has a couple of benefits, but most notably, like, the hope is to draw out the Chandelure, which will allow us to get a nasty plot off, and +2 Dark Pulse is going to just take care of that mon. I'm not really sure who else Celeste switches into Billy. I mean, maybe the Amoonguss, maybe. But yeah, like, I feel pretty good about that. We've done really well against Mes for the last couple of weeks. I'm hoping that we can continue that. Mes's team is scary and he plays very well, so it's kind of an any given Sunday type of situation, but we're going to do our very best. But yeah, that's our team builder for this week, guys. I think it looks pretty good. I'm hoping that we do really well. I want to make you guys proud. But that's going to be it for today. I will, of course, be back on Sunday in your ears, in your podcatcher of choice, bringing you Blast Burn Radio podcast episode 82, and we'll be back next week to do streams. We're heading into a huge week of gameplay, probably the biggest week of gameplay in this series. So it's going to be really exciting and really hype, so look forward to that. But that's going to be it for me today, guys. As always, I've been Jolly by Nature. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see y'all next time.